This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
Welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Cory Wright.
And I'm your other sometimes host, Matt Scalina.
Matt, how you doing today? You're my favorite of the two. Just I can say that Adam's far away, but you're my favorite
Adam
of the two.
is not listening to this, but he will.
He will.
He should.
We shouldn't tell him that I just said that, and we'll see if he makes a comment to see if he actually listens to us or not.
Well, I'm going to tell him to listen to this one because, of course, everybody should listen to every episode. But this is a real exciting episode. We got Mayor Stewart Young from the city of Langford. This is one of Canada's longest serving mayors.
And
he has been the mayor of Langford, British Columbia since December 1993.
Unbelievable.
I mean, and the growth
Tremendous.
and the change that Langford has seen over the last, say, 20 years is just incredible. Mayor Young comes on and discusses what it's taken to kind of take Langford from dog patch, I think is what he was calling it.
How you described it.
Dog patch.
It's one of Canada's fastest growing cities.
And according to BC Business, BC's most economically resilient city. So I don't think you can leave this conversation without being excited about Langford, British Columbia. That's for sure.
After this interview, if people aren't calling you to sell their Lower Mainland homes to go to Langford, I don't know what else is going to convince them.
Or invest.
I'm
the
one thing too that Mayor Young makes, he goes through and he describes how they look at the development community as partners and how for us to grow our community, we need them as much as they need us. And it's amazing how it sounds like common sense, how he explains it. And it's amazing how some cities have made that process maybe so much longer than maybe they have to. I don't want to say they're intentionally doing it, but in Langford, they're so open for business, open for development. They're here to help you get homes. They're here to help you build businesses. And they just it sounds like they look at business differently than maybe some other communities.
Well, and I think it's how he really breaks it down, talking about tax base and where the revenue comes from and what the goals of a city municipal government are.
Yeah.
And I think his philosophy kind of really makes a lot of sense and is really attractive for a lot of people. And there's a reason why Langford is booming.
You got it.
And that's for sure. But before we get to our talk with Mayor Stewart Young, Cory, I just received in the mail a knife. And so did you.
I did.
At first when I said, I texted you and Adam and said, hey, we just got knives. I think your response made me think like it was like I just texted you and said there's anthrax in an envelope coming to the office. But this is actually kind of an interesting.
It's a great story. This is exactly
story.
Why we started this podcast. This is exactly why.
So Wilson Wong, and I'm hoping he won't be upset that I'm mentioning his name, from Edmonton, Alberta. So he sent engraved knives to Cory, myself, and Adam, and he wrote a very nice note. But here's the part that made my heart sing, Cory.
Yeah.
The wealth of knowledge that you provided me on your podcast helped me close my first ever commercial deal in 128 days worth $3 million.
That's the sole reason why we wanted to start this podcast, was to create education for people that maybe otherwise thought it was challenging and bring on guests that can help break down and explain the process. And if that's not a perfect example of someone who may or may not have had commercial knowledge before, but has listened to the podcast, has probably heard the professionals we've had on. He may have got in touch with professionals locally in Edmonton or maybe some guests on the show, and that might have assisted them to get the property. There's not a better example, and it's amazing to hear that, and we hope that's not the only story out there. We hope other people have benefited by this and have also put some of this stuff to work and been able to acquire or expand their portfolios.
And if they have, send gifts because these are really, really nice knives.
Amazing. So thank you to Wilson for sending them.
Yeah.
Amazing gifts. You didn't have to do that, but it's great to hear that this podcast has helped you in some small way acquire. Sounds like a great property.
Absolutely. But maybe without further ado, we should cut to our talk with Mayor Stewart Young. But Cory, of course, before we do that,
a word from our sponsor.
That's right.
This week's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Impact Commercial Group.
Really enjoy working with Impact Commercial. And we should say Al and his team can basically do anything when it comes to lending.
Anything when it comes under the commercial umbrella. You're building a building and development, we got you covered. You're buying land, we'll make that happen for you. You're investing in a property or multifamily building, check. Owner-occupiers looking to acquire their own space, double check. Anything commercial financing you need, Impact Commercial is your go-to.
ImpactCommercial.ca. And we should say over 50 years of combined experience. So trust these guys. They're the right fit.
Best in the business, in my opinion.
Okay, we're here with Mayor Stewart Young from the city of Langford. How are you doing today, Mayor Young?
Great, thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Can we maybe start, a lot of people will know your name. On the Vancouver Real Estate Podcast, we've talked a considerable amount about Langford in the past. But for listeners who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I was born and raised in Langford. Our family's been here for over 85 years. Been the mayor for the last 30 years and been part of the transition from what we used to be called Dog Patch, which was just a bad connotation for our area. And so my goal was to, we had 20% unemployment in 1992. So my goal was to transition into more of a business-oriented municipality and getting to yes, and working with the development community. So they came and invested in Langford. And so we've come a long way. We got the best sports facilities around. We've got housing for all levels. And we have the lowest taxes in all of the 13 municipalities on southern Vancouver Island. So we're actually doing really well as a city. Even though we're in COVID and people are having a tough time, we'll still have low taxes this year. So we're doing really well because we've got a lot of support from the business community and a lot of investment in Langford. And just even in the last 5 years, just people want to move to Langford now. It becomes more of a destination, but it's a young family community. The demographic in Langford is the lowest age group in the region. So we've got a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, a lot of people working and doing sports and coming out. We fill our stands with rugby and soccer, professional soccer, the national rugby teams here, of course. And so it's just a kind of a vibrant community, and we're just looking forward to the future. We're getting a more dense downtown core, and university in our downtown core hopefully announced here in a little bit. So you're just going to see a real good transition to a well-rounded community.
It's interesting. You're one of the longest serving mayors in Canada, and you've been the mayor for 7 consecutive terms. And it sounds like, you've seen, as you kind of implied in your answer there, you've seen a huge change in Langford. Can you talk a little bit more about that transition and that idea of getting to yes and kind of what that took over the course of consecutive terms as mayor?
Yep. Well, we started out with, a pretty bad situation when it came to taxation. We were raising our taxes 5-6% a year. People were really getting anywhere, and people would just be raising their families here, and then the kids and everybody would have to leave because there was no jobs here. So it was a bit of a dire strait when I took over. And so we knew what we had to do, and that was to increase our tax base commercially and business-wise. And, at the same time, we brought in sewers, and that was a big, bonus for us to kind of manage our land base. And once you bring in sewers, and then we started doing the infrastructure improvements, water. So basically, we've replaced everything in the last 30 years. For our infrastructure, we are improving our roads. We never had street lights before, or sidewalks, or bike lanes 30 years ago. So we've come a long way so far. We got 363 kilometers of roads in Langford and 93 kilometers of bike lanes and sidewalks. So we're really doing a lot of change as development occurs. Development pays, for the improvements in our neighborhoods and in our downtown core. But we're really fast at rezoning. Like, it's a 3-month rezoning process in Langford, 48-hour building permit. like we roll out the red carpet for business. We roll out the red carpet for people that want to build seniors housing, affordable housing, and basically everything in Langford's affordable anyway. Even though houses are 800,000 for a new one, is still more affordable in Victoria at 1.2, 1.3 million. So we've always had this young families attracted to the city of Langford, and that's why we're growing. It's people are moving out this way when they want to, put their kids in sports. We've got a Y out here, brand new. We've got a stadium that holds 6,000 now, soon to be 10,000. There's a lot of improvements that we're doing to our community to make it more and more desirable. Lots of trails, lots of parks. So we're just adding. Like we probably had 200-300 acres of parks when we first started 30 years ago. Now we've got over 2,300 acres of park. So it's as the community grows, we grow our parks, we grow our recreation, and we've grown our business community so that people can actually live in Langford, raise their family, and their kids can actually work in Langford. And then hopefully we get a university, and then basically they will be able to raise their kids. Their kids will be able to go to university in our town. Royal Roads University has bought the land in our downtown core, 4 acres for the new university. So we're just working with the government and UVic and Camosun College to put the programs together, and then the Treasury, the provincial government Treasury, is looking at the program right now. So, we've got a lot of things kind of going on that tick the boxes for what people want. So, and we have a lot of dialogue with the residents of Langford, and they're very supportive of what we've done. Like there's just so much support for the improvements that we're doing, and they want to see change. They didn't, they recognized where we came from and when we started into where we are today is just, awesome. And we're attracting big businesses too, like Plexus, the high-tech company, moved out from Brampton, building a $40 million tower in Langford, basically to move all their people and, buy homes in Langford. And so they've really uprooted and come here because they like the livability of Langford. And, then we had Tesla. We just did a groundbreaking for Tesla this morning for the main service center for all of Vancouver Island and sales. So now people don't have to go to Vancouver. Yeah. So, every day we've got something going on, you know what I mean? Something new, something fun. And it's exciting here in Langford. It's so much better than it was before. It was kind of down in the dumps. Now you get up in the morning as the mayor and you run around and you go, hey, what's going on? Let's do this. You know what I mean? Everybody's got great ideas and we move forward on them. And like I say, we roll out the red carpet for business. We know that businesses create jobs, they pay high taxes. So we make sure that we give them the respect they deserve, providing jobs for the residents of Langford that we never had before. People go, well, why do you, get so excited about a business coming and stuff? I said, well, because we never had them before. I grew up with all my family moving away when they graduated. And I said, at least now people don't realize that we're in such a better position now to position our kids to have a better life, and not have to move away from their family and their support. So that's why it's really important to have the university in your town. So you can just kind of go from your house to school. And then when you graduate grade 12, then you go to university. So, and we're lacking. And the only reason why we're pushing the university so much is because the transition from grade 12 to post-secondary education, we're under the BC average, and we need to change that. We need to get our kids educated and give them a better opportunity for jobs. Those are exciting things that we're working on, and hopefully that will come to fruition.
Just thinking about how exciting it is, and I feel like before we went live, Mayor, you mentioned, in the last 5 years, it's like Langford's on everybody's map, it seems. But if you could isolate one or two things over the last, say, 20 years that you attribute to the success, you've mentioned kind of courting the business community and treating them with the respect that they deserve. In terms of like things that have really led to Langford's success, what are the most important in your mind?
Well, I think it's cooperation. So understanding what the needs of your community is. I know, and you got to make tough decisions. That's one thing that we do. We don't defer things like in basically 30 years, I think I've deferred 2 things off the council agenda. When it's on the agenda and we approve the agenda, we make a vote on it. And it's yes or no and move on. So you don't have to sit around and wait 2 years or 3 years for a decision from a council that's going to be no anyway. If they know it, just make your decision.
Right.
Just get yourself counted and let's move on. So there's no waste of time, you know what I mean? And I'm very supportive of dialogue and supportive of needs and issues of businesses. And, as we say, we treat them with respect. We want the jobs, we want the resulting tax base, but we do it fairly, and we make sure that we're not the impediment to the new jobs for Langford residents, and we're not the impediment for businesses. We want them excited that they're in Langford, and I want every business in Langford to be successful. And we make sure that we, help them out if they're having tough times. We make sure we go and see them. We have a development officer that goes around and helps them with issues. And so we take it to heart, that they're part of our community. They're the lifeblood of it. And, we may have to, help them along the way, or, help them with some advertising or something like that to keep them going. So we're really involved in our business community. And if you move to Langford, or you want to move to Langford, I drive the people around, and it's like when they came out from Ontario to bring Plexus, I just drove the guy around and said, here's a great place here. Here's this, here's that. What do you need? And he was looking for a place to go. I said, well, here's a great spot. It's right by a lake and this and that. And that's sure enough. He goes in there and he buys it, and he's building a $40 million building. So, so the relationships between somebody saying, I want to invest in Langford, and I look at that as an investment. So as a politician, you don't just dismiss anybody, because you never know who they are and what they're going to be bringing to the table. And I've had some conversations with the president of Costco, and he flew out and wanted to do Costco, and everybody was turning it down everywhere. And I had to phone him and tell him, hey, can you come out, to Langford? I have a spot for you. I'll take your 200 jobs and your $500,000 worth of taxes a year. And the community got behind it. And so then they chose Langford to come and put a building, and that was the start of it. Then we ended up with Home Depot. We ended up with all the big box stores within a certain area that we prescribed in the city of Langford. And then we had our downtown core on Goldstream Avenue. And then we had some, housing and smaller stores in another area. So we kind of, planned the whole community from scratch, basically, and we filled it all up. And all of them are just running on all 8 cylinders. It's really working well. And we had a great official community plan. We have Avi Friedman, who's the best in Canada. He's written 25 books. He teaches at McGill University. He's like the best planner in Canada. We hired him 20 years ago. He's been out 5 times, basically. He's looked at our OCP. He's helped us design it. So we get professionals to help us too. It's not just a bunch of politicians sitting around that never owned a business before going, yeah, well, we got to stop this, or we got to do that. This is actually a document that he creates for us, and we incorporate it into our OCP. But it's done by factual information, experiences in other parts of the world, not just Canada, and best practices, for that. So we take guidance from, professionals that have actually been there, seen it, done it, built it. And the city, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so we've taken the best of the cities around the world, and we've been comparing ourselves to them and seeing what works, in Germany, what works in England, what works, so we've had seminars where we spend all day sessions and we look at what's working somewhere else in the world, and we're not shy to incorporate that into Langford. So it just keeps the buzz going and the excitement of the changes, because it is exciting. It's nice to see, a bunch of new businesses, a bunch of new restaurants. It's nice to see the new schools, all this stuff. Like, we're vibrant, and it's been vibrant for the last, it took us about 10 years to get the changes that we needed to go from dog patch to, something reasonable to raise a city to raise your family in, to where we are today, which is just like, it's almost automatic that people are going to come and invest, $500 million in Langford every year. So it's working really well that way, and we've got a lot of jobs. We actually need more people to move to Langford so we can have the jobs, because we don't have the job force. Like, we're tight. So everybody's saying, hey, we need more workers. So it's pretty exciting to see that, compared to in the recession, and then in 2009, 2010, when, things tightened up, and, people were losing their businesses and stuff like that. And we got through that in Langford. We still had a lot of housing starts. We only went down about 20% on our housing starts, even when everybody else was shut down. So we did some cool stuff, though. When the recession was there in 2009, 2010, we waived all our fees for permits in the city. We had a big meeting with all the developers and said, hey, look, we need you to keep our people working. Can you, continue to take the risk? We'll help you with your fees, and we'll knock down a bunch of barriers financially that are stopping you from working. And then they went back to work, and they hired their people back, and they started building housing. So we really never lost a bunch, but we participated in the growth and reduced our costs to make sure that we still had people in Langford working.
Just thinking about the reputation of Langford and the way that you're speaking about it here, without naming any other cities, it seems like it's such a contrast from a lot of the other cities in the Lower Mainland and on the island, as I understand as well. It sounds like you're looking around the world for examples of what works. I'm just curious, like, can you speak to how you're so unique in southern BC in terms of your relationship with business and how you're approaching growth?
Well, so here's the thing. We all got to recognize the municipalities only get money from houses. They're not from your income. That's nothing to do with it. It is basically you're taxed on your house. So we have to be really smart as a municipality and make sure that we don't start taxing for social programs that the provincial government does. We don't start trying to get ourselves elected by wasting taxpayers' money to say, look at me, I'm going to go do this for you. And it's actually nothing to do with sewer, water, or services that you need or sidewalks. And so this is where the politicians make the mistake at the municipal level. They get elected. They don't tell you they're going to spend a whole bunch of money on things that actually they're paying for their house tax. And they mix a whole bunch of other stuff that the provincial and federal governments do. So I've tried to keep it really tight and business-like and make sure that the city does not waste its money on other levels of government, which they're responsible for. So we draw kind of a line and say, these are our core values and core businesses, and this is what we spend our money on. And when you look at it from a point of view, I mean, I pick up the paper every day and I read what these municipalities are doing and go, I would never do that. Right. I wouldn't waste the taxpayers' money on that. Like, you got to remember, people get taxed at the provincial level on their income and the federal level. So what happens is they've already taxed us. So why are we taxing houses and income for the same thing? It doesn't make sense. So people need to understand municipalities have to be held accountable for the taxation of the house and make sure that the house taxation isn't paying for what your normal income pays on your taxes every year when you file them in April. So I've tried to make sure that we run the city as a business. And so there's only so much money out there. So that's why we've been able to keep our taxes, low. We're the lowest in the whole 13 municipalities and probably the lowest in BC when it comes to communities our size. And that was for a reason. And the other thing is I didn't treat development. When I first got in 30 years ago in 92, everybody was talking, the development people, they're bad. They're bad. Developers are bad. And I'm going, well, actually, they build houses that you live in. They create businesses. They build roads for me and they put in the sewer and stuff, and then they turn it over to me for free as a city. I'm going, they're not bad people. What we need to do is treat them as partners. So I changed the rhetoric from, the developer's just going to get their way. They're making so much money. And, and yet these people, they buy their houses and they move in and then they complain. So I try to tell people in Langford, don't complain, right? Like, you don't have to complain about a developer. They're the ones that have contributed to our 1,800 acres that we got in our parks was all attributable to donations from developers. So I work with them. And so if I speed up their approval process and we have a defined process that isn't kind of like scary to somebody, they're going to invest $50 million in Langford. And then we say, after 3 years of running them through the ringer, we say, no, we're not going to do it. Or we come up with some other story. What we do is we kind of try and get it before the investment is done. A guy can tie up a property for 6 months without paying for it, go through our process, and we won't be the ones holding it up. And then he'll get his zoning, and then he carries on. So, but if you got to wait 3 years for rezoning or go through all these public processes and everything else, well, then that just kills development, because people aren't going to sit there and spend $20-30 million on a project, 40-50 million even, and wait for the politicians who really know nothing about business. And then they go, well, hold on, let them build, 5 miles of road for us and maybe give us 20 units of their 60 unit development. They don't understand the money and the cost to the development community already. And the benefit of investment in a community is so huge. If you don't continue to have investment in your community and you become stagnant and you have no growth at all and no new businesses, then you're really not doing the service to your community, because your community will grow by people, their families, raising families and stuff like that, where you want to be able to make sure that your kids get a job somewhere while they're going to school, when they're going to, university. And then when they get out, they want a job in your community. They don't really want to go move away from their home base. And so we're trying to make sure that we work with the development community. We treat them as our partners. They do a lot for our community. I never have a problem raising money for a cause in Langford. Like we raised $350,000 to when Haiti had the earthquake. We raised that in Langford and went over there and built a church and built an orphanage. We rebuilt it because it had all crumbled. And our fire department went over there. We had our police go over there and help out. Our building inspector went over. So it's a real community thing. We've had our fire chief go to Afghanistan when the war was on, basically, and go and train their firefighters over there. And then they came to Langford. We've had, fire trucks go to Belize. We've had the Belize firemen come to Langford and get trained. So we've kind of reached out beyond our borders too to help people and stuff. So it keeps the morale good. You feel good about what you're doing too as well. So we try and be innovative and also help out so that, it's not just all about Langford. We try and build relationships with other people as well. It's not just a business oriented thing, but it's a successful model that we've had for 30 years. No question. It's worked really well.
Well, I can say from the development community that we work within on the commercial brokerage side of the business, Langford is one of, if not the only city that I know developers are excited about when it comes to the development process. And they're very, very eager. And I think it speaks to a lot of how you've approached it from a local community where it's, look at it as a partner, not more or less kind of like, you should be thankful we're letting you build here. Please go sit on the sidelines for 36 months and pay for your property while we think about this. So one thing we've seen recently too, is there were some recent tower approvals that was in Langford and more in the downtown core. Can we talk a little bit maybe more about how you envision the shape of the downtown core, and are more towers kind of part of the OCP that you're looking for?
Yeah. So we knew like 20, 30 years ago that, our urban containment boundary where we were supposed to build houses, we knew that we were supposed to take, 60% of the growth in Southern Vancouver Island was going to be in the West Shore and in Langford. So the pressure was there already anyway, because we had the land base. But as we started filling out our land base, we started saying, okay, there's going to be a time where we're going to have to transition to towers and get people to go up. Otherwise, we're going to be really over full, and fill right out to our borders. So what we did last year, working with Avi Friedman and working with our planning staff, we designated some corridors where towers can go. And so we published that, and then development community got behind it, and we're investing in buying homes up. And now we've got, I think, 6 or 7 towers approved already in the last 3-4 months.
Wow.
And you're going to see a new modern city. And we want that. We want to have affordable housing. These condo units, where we've got affordable, attainable housing program that if you're lived in Langford for 2 years and you want to buy, into the market. So we've got agreements now with developers where they build 2-bedroom condos for $450, and the city of Langford helps up to $17,500 on their down payment through our affordable housing fund that developers help fund. So we're working with them, and we've got 700 people on a waiting list right now that actually want a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom condo that they can get assistance from us on their down payment. And that's the big thing. We talk to everybody in our community, and they, that's renting, and they're paying $2,200, $2,300, $2,000 for rent right now in a new apartment block, 2-bedroom. Well, you can actually buy, if you had a down payment, a condo for $450. You're going to be paying the same amount of money, or maybe even a little less, for actually home ownership and getting equity. So that's what we want to do, is get all these young people into housing and own it and take ownership of it, get some equity. That'll be way better for them than rent for 5, 10, 15 years. So rental's a transition. We need to find a way to go from rental to home ownership for these people that are renting. And once you rent for 2 or 3 or 4 years, you've got a track record of paying your rent. You should be able to get a loan. We give you the down payment and most of the down payment, and then you get yourself into a house or a condo. Houses are $800,000 plus, and this is just really not attainable anymore for people. They need help from their parents. They need help from, friends or whatever to get some money, to put the money down on it. So what we're trying to do is to have the municipality help with the partnership that we have with the development community. Like, they put in about $1.5 million, $2 million a year in our attainable housing fund, and they're happy to do it. They just pay it every unit they build. They give us a check for $1,000, $2,000. It goes into attainable housing fund, and then we take, up to $17,000 of that, help somebody get into a actual house. And it's the only way you're going to start to work on the supply and demand side of it. We try and build as many units as we can so that we don't fall behind and prices go up just because there's nothing there to buy. And, they said that we've actually built 180% of what we actually, compared to other municipalities, instead of just building what we need and what they tell us we need to build, we built 180% of the housing needs. So we're 80% above what we should be doing. And that's a good thing because the other ones are like negative 50%. So the rest of the municipalities actually aren't doing their part in an affordable housing crisis. We're in an affordable housing crisis. We need to build housing units for people. And now we're going to go up in our downtown core. They don't have to have a car. They can qualify for a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom unit. That will invigorate our downtown core. It'll be good for students when we have a university in our downtown core. They'll be able to live in these units and go to university right in downtown core without having to worry about transportation or otherwise. So it works really well. So the model we're doing is just, we understand that, the governments can't tax their way out of this problem. What we need to do is actually the municipalities at our level have to provide the supply. We have to get rid of red tape and bureaucracy and actually tackle the problems that we are, municipalities that are really creating roadblocks. This should be really simple. And so we've kept it simple in Langford. And the other great thing is my staff are so good in Langford. You know what I mean? They solve problems. They call me day and night. We have a good relationship with them all. And, we just make things happen.
Can we, you've mentioned Costco, Tesla, the university. Can we talk a little bit more about what type of jobs you're seeing in Langford and what the expectations are kind of moving forward next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, in the next 3 to 5 years, you're seeing more tech jobs come to Langford. People like living out in Langford. We got 3 lakes in our downtown core. So it's about livability now too as well. We just approved a 200-acre industrial park, business park. There's nowhere to go in southern Vancouver Island for a business park, so we created one with the First Nations and with municipality of Metchosin. We combined, put the 200 acres together, and now we're running power and water to it now. And so it'll be ready to go and have units in it in the next 3-4 months. So we're getting those type of jobs, which are really important. 200 acres is a large tract of land, but it's also going to be 2,000-3,000 jobs there. So we're just planning for the future to make sure that we have the land available for businesses to be successful. And the more land we create, instead of tightening it up and watching the prices double, as we create a bit more land, it makes it more palatable to buy a piece of land for your business. So there's those type of jobs. And then the government has created some offices in Langford. They're virtual offices. You can go there and do your work there instead of driving into Victoria. You can go to these offices, which you can actually do remote work from. But it's not from your home. You actually drive to this location, so you don't have to drive all the way to Victoria. And that's really successful. And so what we want to do in the next 3 to 5 years is attract more government offices in Victoria, so people don't have to get in the traffic every morning and drive all the way into town. And the other issue is, and it takes a long time, and plus parking's expensive in Victoria. And, in Langford, we don't have meters. We don't have pay parking. It's free parking for everybody. So you don't get a ticket when you go into a store for a $5 popsicle, and you come out and you got a ticket for $15 or $35, I think it is now. And Langford has had a policy. I put that in 30 years ago. I said, we're never going to charge for parking, and we never have. And we've not put any meters up everywhere. We just give everybody 2-hour free parking everywhere, 3-hour free parking. And we've got almost 1,000 parking spaces in our downtown core already that are free. And we'll just continue to do that. As development occurs, we'll get some revenue, and then we go buy a piece of property in our downtown core and we make it a parking lot, and so people get, accesses. And then later on, the next 10, 15 years, we have enough land that we can put parkades in, and everybody can park their electric car in it with a plug-in, stuff like that. So it'll just be kind of, we're planning the city for the future. We're going to try and make it the most modern city. Right now, we have the best infrastructure of anybody on Vancouver Island. It's the newest, obviously. We're growing fast, but we're also doing that because we're putting in brand new infrastructure and lots of new buildings in Langford. You know what I mean? We've gone from 12,000 people when I was first mayor to 50,000 now. And, probably, 1,500% increase in our businesses,
Wow.
our business is that in Langford. So it's been a really good sort of story for Langford, because you can see, the wealth of the community and the excitement in the community, the recreation services, the lakes, the trails, it's just made it really nice. Like, I live here and I would never move, and this is just an absolute, I was born here and my family's been here, my grandfather and stuff. We've been in Langford all these years and we wouldn't move, and my mom's still here in Langford, and, so, and
Wow.
my family. So it's just, it just feels like a great place to be. And I'm proud to be the mayor of it. Absolutely. It's one of the best moves I ever did, was to become the mayor here and kind of work with everybody and try and make the place better.
Well, you just answered the last question, which was, would you consider coming to Vancouver and being our mayor?
Yeah. You could probably teach a few mayors around this province a thing or two, it sounds like.
Well, you know what? The biggest problem I can tell you is, for me to go over anywhere and fight the bureaucracy would take me forever to make a change. Bureaucracy and the red tape that is just, it's entrenched into these municipalities, and they don't move very fast. And I move at 100 degrees. Tomorrow I want to do this, I'll change it. And maybe people think I'm crazy, but if there's a better way to do it, we're going to find it and we're going to do it.
I don't think there is. I don't think there is.
Yeah, no, you gotta, like I say, it's enjoyable when things go right and that you're seeing improvements. It's enjoyable. I don't know how these other, politicians go to work every day and their infrastructure is crumbling. They don't fix their sewers and waters and sidewalks. Like, we're putting all this stuff in brand new just because we got the support of the development community that's paying for all that. And so roll out the red carpet for business is what I tell everybody, because those are the jobs that your people need. And then make sure that your housing supply isn't bogged down with red tape and bureaucracy and take you 4 years or 3 years to actually get the supply to market. Like, we can actually approve something in less than 3 months, have them actually building the housing units, which makes them affordable then. And within a year, houses are sold. There's not a process here that I'm boggled to hear that, people in Vancouver that I know have said, well, I've owned this place, by the SkyTrain, and it's zoned for multifamily, and it's taken 5 years for them to even get through the approval process. And I'm going, wow, really? And that's a guy who came over to Langford, built 130 apartment units. He bought it, and with 14 months later, he had them all rented out. And he tells me the story that, that he has this property, by the SkyTrain, and he said he still has not had it approved. And it was, I think he said 7 years.
I think we may know this guy.
Yeah, well, there you go. You probably do. And he's a good guy, and he's built, I won't mention his name, but he's come over to Langford. He built his first one, and he's built 3 of them now. And his son is over there building now and taking over the thing. So anyway, he's a good guy, and he came over to Langford and he saw the need for our community. He's built 500 units, 600 units, just because, he found out about Langford and came over. And it's great because he made the supply that we needed in Langford to keep people, in Langford and be able to, have a nice place to live, not a basement suite or, somewhere where they are a little bit, wasn't as good as what it could be for them. And so these new facilities, new buildings, new parks, everything's just fresh.
Just thinking about kind of a last question about Langford here. I mean, the population growth has been incredible. In terms of projections, if you've approved, it sounds like 4 or 5 towers in the last couple months for the downtown core. What do you see for growth in the next 5, say 10 years?
It'll be about the same. We think that when you're doing towers in the downtown core and building a new modern city, there's a general excitement about it right now, because you're taking down 1940s wartime homes, some really dilapidated housing units. And I love to see them, get demolished and get out of there and then have these new modern buildings up. And that's really important to a downtown core. Your downtown core is not vibrant when you're walking by, buildings that have had no repair or maintenance on them for 20 years.
Right.
And, they're just not nice buildings that we have. But most of them have been bought up now in our downtown core. So I would say 90% of the people in our downtown core have sold or are willing to sell right now. So there's a real transition out of the neighborhood to say, okay, yeah, we support the towers, but also there's $600,000 houses selling for 1.5 million. So, you know what I mean? Like, so now they have an opportunity to move out and go buy
Right.
something new or go invest somewhere else, or, you know, that. So they, you know, the market is driven by demand, and basically there's a lot of demand for housing right now. So it makes sense. So what do I see? I see a really vibrant downtown core with, you know, restaurants and everything underneath these towers that we're building. Daycares. We just approved one that was 24 stories or 22 stories and 20 stories. And it has a 300-person daycare in it, you know, as part of the development, which is, it's just great, like, to see that type of stuff in our downtown core. And then restaurants, you know, the towers that there's a couple applications coming in where they're building some 26 or 24, 22 story towers, and they're bringing in restaurants. You know, they're talking Cactus Club, Earls, things like that, which, you know, is for a young community like ours, they're going to do really well. Every restaurant does well in Langford because there's so many people working in the trades. They're out eating, they're out having drinks. You know, it's kind of a vibrant, you know, community, but it's a safe community too. Like, you know, we have a large complement of RCMP officers. We don't shy away from buying policemen. We buy a lot of them, and every year we add 3 or 4, you know, and the support staff that goes with it. So we're not scared to spend the money on policing to keep our community safe, and they do a heck of a job, the RCMP in Langford. And the safety of our community doesn't go unnoticed. You know, people like it.
Mayor, we've taken up probably more time than we were probably allotted to with you. We really appreciate you breaking down Langford. And I can probably say, if every listener on this podcast isn't selling your house over here, moving to Langford by Monday, I don't know what more the mayor could do. I'm sold. I'm in.
If your house is worth $2 million in Vancouver and you can come over to Langford and buy the same house for $800 to $1 million and it's brand new, it's probably a good move for a lot of people, because that's what a lot of people are.
You don't have to twist.
A lot of people are
arms.
doing that. I hear that. Yeah. So,
Mayor, before we let you go, we have a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask you to kind of get to know you a little bit more outside of the office. Do you have just a few more minutes for us?
Okay.
Our 6-pack is powered by our good friends over at Red Point Law. For all your commercial legal needs, visit them at redpointlaw.ca. Okay, first question up, Mayor, and we're going to give you an easy one. Favorite movie?
Well, that's a difficult one. I don't really have I don't really do it, but probably the Star Wars movies. One of those they're fun to watch. Yeah,
good choice.
So
good choice.
That type.
What song's on repeat in your car right now?
I listen to Neil Diamond. I listen to I don't know. I don't really listen to a lot of music, but I listen to the classics, right? Like things like that when I'm driving around, so I don't get too distracted.
Favorite vacation spot when you find the time?
Cabo San Lucas.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good choice. That was an easy one.
One book you would recommend all our listeners read?
The Langford zoning book.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're a busy guy.
I don't read books, so the Rob Report magazine or something like that, yeah. or the DuPont Registry. I like looking at cars and doing that.
Yeah. Now, this one you can pick a few because we don't want you to feel like we're asking to pick your favorite kid. But favorite bar or restaurant to try to visit in Langford when you have the time?
Well, I own a few restaurants, but I won't say mine. But I will say that right now, the one I go to is called Liberty Kitchen. It's a new one in Langford at the Belmont Market, and that's a great place to go for lunch and dinner.
Oh, great choice. Great choice.
Fantastic. Well, Thank you so much for your time again, Mayor Stewart Young. That was a phenomenal conversation. And I have a feeling the ferry's going to be busy when this comes out next week.
And for all of our listeners that want to find out more what's going on in Langford, how can they find out more?
Well, just phone 478-7882, the 250-478-7882, and really connect with our development officer. And she's the promoter of Langford that we've hired. And her name is Donna Petrie.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much once again, Mayor. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to come over and they're looking at investing in Langford, then just call City Hall, that same number, and get a hold of me, and I'll drive you around and show you about and see where we can fit you in.
That sounds amazing.
All right.
Well, thank you so
It's
much,
incredible.
Mayor Young. We really appreciate your time today, and it was an incredible episode.
Okay, awesome. Okay,
Great.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you have it, folks. Our interview with Mayor Young of Langford. And like I said in the intro, if you don't have a for sale sign on your house by the end of this episode, there's nothing more the mayor can do. He will drive you around.
So this is the thing. I remember going on a bus tour, an investor tour to Langford a while back, and it was with Investment Revenue Realty and Dave Steele's team that was building condos over there. And I thought, wow, they're driving everybody around on a bus. This is great. I didn't realize I could have called Mayor Young and actually just driven around with him instead.
He would have taken the bus for a tour. Yeah. No, here's the one thing too, right? Is it's an amazing story from his family being there for as long as they have, him getting into politics, becoming the mayor, had a clear vision, it sounds like, of what it is, and just how they approach the development community and the business community. And it's easy to see where you have smaller towns and where people that have grown up in smaller towns, they want them to remain small. And that's great. And that can happen. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's challenging to grow your infrastructure and your community without having dollars brought in by developers and all that stuff. And it seems like they've sort of taken around the outside of the box approach a little bit, but we're very focused on what they wanted. They've achieved it. And for those listeners who haven't been to Langford, I encourage you to go. It's great.
It is great.
It's great.
Yeah, no question about that. I actually, our bus stopped at the Costco. He mentioned the Costco.
Yeah.
I was right outside the Costco in Langford. But it is such an exciting community. And man, if like we said, if it's such an attractive community to be a part of,
and well positioned too.
And we didn't really talk about. I mean, they're doing really amazing things with sports. We didn't get there.
Well, it's, we had two of our members in our Victoria office. They were both Rugby 7 players and also Rugby 7 Olympians this past year.
Canadian Olympians.
And they trained at the facility there. And I remember one time I was over in Victoria, Connor Braid from our office there took me down there and showed me where their facility was, their training facility, but also the field and the stand. This is not what you expect to see in Langford. It's phenomenal. And he talks about how they're going to expand that for concerts and for sporting events.
And even the number of housing starts, it's such a vision for what Langford will become.
Yeah.
Right? It's and even all the infrastructure he talks about, it's bright guy.
Well, we had that project that we launched probably 9 months ago now in Langford, which is 100% under contract now, with I think 96% sold. We've got 2 units, I believe 2 units, maybe 3, that they have subject removal middle of this month, and that project will be 100% sold in 9 months. That speaks to the desire for people to get into Langford when projects like that are selling out that fast. That's, I think it's 130,000 square feet of industrial.
It's incredible.
Incredible.
Incredible. Well, maybe we'll leave it there, Cory, this week, but how can people find out what you're doing over at William Wright?
They're welcome to visit anytime at williamwright.ca. They can call our Vancouver office at 604-428-5255. Let us know what they're looking for. We'll put them in touch with the best professional within the province for their asset class, or they can always send me an email, Cory@williamwright.ca. Always happy to talk real estate.
Fantastic. And of course, these episodes do live at VancouverRealEstatePodcast.com with write-ups. So if you're looking for a synopsis, VancouverRealEstatePodcast.com, where all things real estate related live. And Cory, maybe we'll leave it there, but we'll be back next week. And I got to say, every episode gets better. It's
more exciting
incredible.
every time. Thanks for listening, guys.
Have a good week.
Subscribe today.